retired Colonel Larry Kaifesh, also known as the Constitutional Colonel. You can find him, if you want to follow him and get additional information and some of the things that he writes, you can go to his Substack that says Larry Kaifesh. He said that they don't censor there, so he can say what he wants. As many of you remember, he was here last year, and when he joined us last year, he was heading off to D.C. to help prepare if in the event that President Trump got elected. So woohoo, President Trump got elected, and now Larry is working out there with the military. So he said he's been traveling to Washington, D.C. when I spoke with him and called and said, what are you up to now that he's elected? And he said, well, he's been traveling to both Washington, D.C. and Mar-a-Lago. And I said, Mar-a-Lago? Why are you going to Mar-a-Lago? And he said, there's still too much of the deep state in D.C. So the really secret stuff has to be done in Mar-a-Lago because too many bad ears in D.C. So his data is very eye-opening, and he will discuss several different topics tonight. We appreciate Larry's willingness to join us again to share what's happening now in the military and more. So we're thankful he is working to save our country for us. So, Larry?
Okay. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes. Okay. Well, first thing I want to do, and you probably heard me say this before, but I want to thank you all for doing what you're doing. You're being vigilant. You're paying attention to what's going on. You're staying smart. You're staying abreast of the current situations. You're fighting for good candidates. You're doing everything Thomas Jefferson wanted us to do when he said, the cost of freedom is eternal vigilance. You're being vigilant. God bless you. Keep doing it. It's going to make a difference. So thank you. Last time I was here, we had a tornado warning. We had to run in the basement. And we came up, and then we had another warning. We went back down. It was quite entertaining, but I saw this storm coming today. I'm like, oh my God, it's not a good sign. Because what I'm going to talk about is going to be heavy. And if I listened to a word I'm saying tonight 5 years ago, I would have said that person's nuts. Today, it's a totally different story. I got a whole new shelf on my bookcases of books and resources. And there's a lot of information that is not getting out there, and I'm going to try to tap into that today. But before I do, I just do want to take a moment because today is the anniversary of my sister's passing. And she was here last year, and for many, it was the last one. And I know many of us have lost someone loved in the last year. I know Walter and Judy lost their son-in-law recently. So if we can just take a moment of silence before we carry on. Okay. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to start off with a short video, and then we're going to get into it. Devin, if you can knock this out. And this is going to be the preface I want you to think about throughout the brief tonight.
I regard the United States as the most lawless and dangerous country in the world by far. You cannot believe how much misinformation we get every single day. Because I have advised more than 100 governments around the world, I have seen things with my own eyes. I've seen U.S. CIA coups with my own eyes. Governments lie, but superpowers make super lies. And if you're running the largest war machine in the world, you are going to lie all the time. The entire Iraq war was not because they thought there were weapons of mass destruction. Weapons of mass destruction was the outcome of a focus group inside the Pentagon. How are we going to sell this war to the American people? Who made the decision 2 days ago that ATACMS can shoot deep inside Russia? Another brilliant move. We don't even know if the President of the United States is compos mentis right now. We have a deep state that takes these decisions, not a word of explanation to the American people. It's all lies. And I've seen it all through my life because I've been advisors to prime ministers and to presidents and to central bank governors and to some of the wonderful people on this panel. And I've seen a lot.
If you don't know who that is, that's Dr. Jeffrey Sachs. Okay, he's an economist. He's a professor at Columbia. He's a brilliant man, and he's been talking about this for a period of time. And I've been trying to repeat what he said, but he does it much more eloquently. But sadly, most everything that we have been hearing and have been told by our government, by our media, has been lies. Okay? And you have to preface that. And scroll down, please, to the very first slide, I think. You have to understand that before we go deeper into this discussion. And now I want to make sure I clarify that my background is in the infantry, but I also have an intel background. And when you have an intel background and you're dealing with sources, you don't listen to anybody unless they're credible, credentialed, and you have another source that can corroborate it. So anything I share with you tonight is being brought from multiple sources that are corroborating credible information. I hope and pray I'm wrong, and if you can prove that I'm wrong, I want you to. And I ask everybody to do this because what I'm sharing is going to be disturbing. But if we don't know the truth, we can't advance. So next slide, please. Oh, wait a second. Okay, yeah, Force Design. So the first thing I'm going to talk about real quickly is Force Design 2030. I'm not going to spend a lot on this because I think it's going to be taken care of. But what Force Design 2030 is, it is the restructuring of the United States Marine Corps. All right? For those of you, the uniqueness of the Marine Corps is that we can do a large range of military operations, from peacekeeping operations to full-scale combat and everything in between. And then we have a unique capability to get 5,000 Marines anywhere in the world within 24 hours to do battle. That's our unique capability, and that's what we've been from the beginning of time. This force design is a restructuring of the Marine Corps that started in March of 2020 after Biden stole the election. Okay? It's also the same time they started pushing DEI in the military. It's also the same time that they started putting bias training and pronoun training into the military, right after Biden was elected. I looked at it. The first thing that I noticed was the term, Force Design 2030. Do you all know what 2030 is? Agenda 2030 is when the New World Order is supposed to be in place. Okay? The World Economic Forum says 2030 is when the Great Reset's going to take place. For those AOC fans in this group, which I know there are many, that's when she says the end of the world's going to happen because of climate change. So 2030 is the year that all this is supposed to accumulate. It's also when Biden said half the cars in the United States need to be electric. So as soon as I saw Force Design 2030, I'm like, this is concerning. They are completely aligned with this evil dystopian movement, and I call them the globalists, that are trying to destroy America and every sovereign country in the world in order to bring on a new world order that consists of one world government. Okay? So that concerned me. Also what concerned me is the fact that every retired general that I had known and respected and admired who had a great track record, they were all adamantly against it. But every active duty general was completely for it. And we have a compliant force. Most of the folks got kicked out. If you allowed yourself to get vaccinated and pushed it on your troops, you were not taking care of them, and that's what we have left in our military. So they did not say anything about this. Now, the good thing is we do have a new SecDev, we do have a new president. I do believe that this is going to be addressed. I was going to D.C., as Debbie mentioned, because we were working on a couple white papers to address this issue and fix it to make sure that it would not go through. I do not believe it will, but we need to keep a close eye on it and make sure that it doesn't. But that's Force Design 2030. And when I talk about one-trick pony, the concern is that our large range of military operations has been brought down to one-trick pony. So instead of doing everything that we can within a range of military operations, they took away our assets such as engineers, artillery, tanks, infantry, so that our only capability is very minute now. And the mission that they're training us for is to be able to put these small teams with low, short-range missile systems on islands to prevent the Chinese from going across the Taiwan Straits. That's basically what they morphed the Chinese into. And when I looked at it, I said, that makes us irrelevant. If it makes the Marine Corps irrelevant, then it's easier to get rid of. And if you're a globalist that's trying to destroy the sovereignty, you don't want a strong Marine Corps. You don't want a Marine Corps at all. And this is a path to it. So 2030 must be removed. I do believe it's going to happen, but we need to keep a close eye on it. I'm not going to address much more on that because it gets into dirty details and we don't need to know about that. Slide, please. Last time we talked about with Bishop Strickland, I had been communicating with him in his office, and we were trying to set up a time to do an interview. And I wanted to reach out to Bishop Strickland because he's a very special bishop. He's in Tyler, Texas, and he was dismissed from the church. I want you to read the first sentence up there. Pope Francis is a communist. I want you to remember that, okay? He has facilitated the invasion of our southern border. He has been attacking President Trump and any attempt to put a border in place. Catholic Charities, as you know, is an NGO that received millions and millions of dollars from USAID to facilitate the flow of these troops into the country. He's also protected bishops that have had accusations against them that are very nefarious. And when Archbishop Vigano, which many of you think know and love, when he talked about it and called out the Pope, he was excommunicated. Bishop Strickland got up and supported Archbishop Vigano, and he was dismissed. And so that is the reason why I wanted to get with him. But the bottom line is, and you're going to see this theme, there's an attempt to destroy all governments and all religions, specifically the Catholics. Next slide. So you've heard me before, and the last time I was here, we spoke about the globalists. But I started in the late 1960s and the late 1970s because I was just getting familiar with the topic and I was trying to get a grasp on it. But in the 60s and 70s is when the World Economic Forum was created. You all know that, right? It's when the Club of Rome was created. It's when the Trilateral Commission was created. These are all globalist entities that are facilitating the destruction of our sovereignty to bring in this one world government. So that's kind of where I started. But back then, even when I talked to you, I said there's much more to it and I need to get to it. I need to find out where the roots go to, and I need to find out the relationship between the globalists, the Satanists, and the pedophiles. I got there, and we're going to talk about that today. I will tell you right now, and I've talked about it, if you follow my readings, you know I talk about predictive programming. Predictive programming is something that the globalists do to tell us what they're doing. And it's a twofold reasons. Why? They want us to be habituated to their crazy concepts, so when it comes to reality, we're not so shocked. But they also want to tell us what they're doing because I believe it makes them feel a little bit better. Okay? They can do what they're doing, which is pure evil, as long as they're telling us what they're doing. So anytime you look at your media, it's almost all garbage. If you want the truth, you have to go to people who have been canceled, attacked, or censored. I've been on multiple times, and I'm sure it's going to happen more, and that's okay. But I don't watch much TV, and I don't even watch much news. I get most of my sources from people that have been canceled and newsletters that I get and things I search for, but I don't take anything spoon-fed unless I'm trying to learn what the enemy is trying to spoon-feed us. But in movies, there's a lot of information. And I said, I want to watch the movie The Truman Show again because there was a message there and I need to look at it. Does everybody remember the movie The Truman Show? Okay, for those who haven't, The Truman Show is about a young boy played by Jim Carrey. And from the day of his birth, his entire life is a reality TV show. And he lives on a giant TV set that he's being filmed 24/7. The rest of the world is watching Truman, played by Jim Carrey. And his parents are actors. His friends are actors. The neighbors are actors. The neighborhood is just a set, okay? And at one point, a reporter has a question for the director of this TV program, which is played by Ed Harris. And they go to Ed Harris. His name is Christoph in the movie, the director. And they say, Christoph, why do you think Truman hasn't figured out that his whole life is a sham, that everything around him is fake, that it's all lies? And Christoph, played by Ed Harris, the director, says, well, we accept the reality of the world with which we are presented. We accept the reality of the world with which we are presented. And 90% of everything we see, read, and hear is owned by corporations that are owned by the globalists. We are all living in a world that we think is real, but it's really only the world that we're presented. The real world is dramatically different. It's a little depressing, but the truth is going to set us free. When we are set free, then we can bring on the country that we love and aspire and want it to be. So now here's a little bit of trivia. Christoph, this movie was made about 20 years ago, but a very dear friend of ours and a good friend of mine, he lives in that area. So this movie was filmed in Pensacola, Niceville, Panama Beach area of Florida. Christoph ran for Congress in that district. He's a good friend of mine. He ran against Matt Gaetz. Okay? Now the trivia is, the house in the movie, The Truman Show, is the house that Matt Gaetz grew up in. Okay? Matt Gaetz' parents lived in the house, and he grew up in the house that's in the movie, The Truman Show. Our dear friend Christoph, who's an excellent man, ran against Gaetz, and Matt's a very bad person. He speaks very good, and he supports the MAGA agenda, but it's a show. It's a show. I'm sorry to say that. But that's just a bit of trivia. Next slide, please. We shall have a world government, whether or not we like it or not. The only question is whether the world government will be achieved by conquest or consent. This is written by James Paul Warburg. He was the son of Paul Moritz, who was the first chairman of the Federal Reserve System. All right, this is in 1950. When I spoke to you last time, I went back and talked about the globalists, the secret society that's running the world, going back to the late 60s, early 70s. And I was speaking to a person recently, and they said, I refuse to believe that there's a small group of evil people that want to control the world and do harm to humanity. They didn't say, I refuse to listen to lies, or I refuse to listen to people without any credentials or credibility. They said, I refuse to listen to an idea, even though the overwhelming evidence and data says it's true. Next slide. And this is the proof that it's true. The only way this could happen, when I looked at the globalists, I said there's got to be a deeper root. And as I started doing my research and looking into it, I realized it goes back to a group called the Illuminati. Again, if you heard me talking about this 5 years ago, I would have said you're nuts. Okay, the Illuminati was started in 1776 in Bavaria, Germany. But the philosophies and the doctrines that the Illuminati discovered go back to the very beginning of time, to ancient civilizations, the ancient Greeks, the ancient Egyptians, and even Mesopotamia and the Sumerian area, and it even goes back to the Old Testament, the Tower of Babel, and where Nimrod, the great-grandson of Noah, wanted to create a one-world government and destroy our lives. This has been going on a very long time. These secrets have been being passed down through secret societies through the millennium, up until today. I'll just go with a couple of them, but you can see what we're talking about. The final aim of our society is nothing less than to win power and riches, to undermine secular or religious government, or obtain the mastery of the world. That's Adam Weishaupt. He's the founder of the Illuminati, 1776. Okay? Of course, you got the same thing. In 1856, Benjamin Disraeli, British House of Commons. It is useless to deny, because it is impossible to conceal, that a great part of Europe is covered with a network of secret societies. And what are their objects? They do not want constitutional government. They want to change the tenure of land, to drive out the present owners off the soil, and put an end to the churches, establishment churches. 1856. 1922, John Mayer of New York says the same thing. And then, of course, John F. Kennedy talks about secret societies in 1961. The very word secrecy is repugnant. In a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwanted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the damages which are said to justify it. He knew the threat. He talked about the destruction of the CIA, who was a lead element. And we all know what happened. And what I'm talking about is dangerous. And I'm not suicidal inclined, just FYI. But it's got to be said, because if we're too afraid to talk about it, we lose by default. And this is a battle we cannot lose. Next slide. This is just a slide to identify some of these secret societies that I mentioned. But these go back centuries. The Gnostics, the Kabbalah, the mystery schools, the Innes, the Rosh Hashanah, the Assassins. And they all go back to, most of them back to the ancient civilizations of the Greeks and the Egyptians, and learned lessons from higher callings. Next slide. Let's talk a little bit about the Illuminati, because that's the big group right before we get to this. It's 1776. Adam Weishaupt founded it. The goal was to destroy all organized governments and religions. Okay, and they wanted to destroy the government religions because they didn't want it to interfere with their new world order. Sound familiar? None of this stuff is hidden. The plan was to divide the masses in groups and destroy governments and religion. Think about today. What has our Democratic Party done? They have tried to divide us not only by sex, gender, race, class, but they've even broken it down further. They've now created, 79 sexes or genders, right? It's all designed to divide us, to weaken us, in order to conquer us. United we stand, divided we fall. Those words are true, and they'll always be true. And they're smart enough to know it. And that's why they're trying to destroy us. There was a merging of Weishaupt, who was had a Jesuit background, okay, Jacob Frank, and the Rothschilds that had the money. And when those three things came together, it allowed the Illuminati to expand, grow, and spread. Now, I'm going to take a minute about Jacob Frank because it's a critical player in this organization. Jacob Frank thought he was the reincarnation of Sabbatai Zevi. Has anybody ever heard of Sabbatai Zevi? Okay, I haven't either, until I started doing this extensive research. But Sabbatai Zevi was the head of the Zionist movement. And on June 6, 1666, is when he claimed that he was the Messiah. June is the 6th month of the year. Okay? He did not pray to the God that we pray to. He and Jacob Frank, they believed that God, in the Gnostics version of the Old Testament, was evil. And they believed that God was Satan. Okay? Jacob Frank, who was a critical part of expanding the Illuminati, was a Satanist. And in order to emulate Satan, and in order to be in Satan's good graces, they transgressed and did the most horrific actions imaginable, to include pedophilia, to include incest, to include all the nastiest things you can even imagine. And when you look at today, y'all remember Sidney Powell, right? Sidney Powell was the attorney for General Flynn. Sidney Powell said Anthony Weiner's laptop, y'all remember Anthony Weiner? Anthony Weiner's wife was the number one assistant to Hillary Clinton. She said when they looked at his laptop, two detectives, New York City, decades of experience, hardened types, said they puked. They puked. We haven't heard what exactly was on that laptop. Why not? We've all heard about endochrome harvesting, right? When you frighten children to such a degree, their adrenaline takes over their body, they harvest the blood, and they take the adrenaline and put it in their body in order to become more energized and younger and youthful. We've all seen what happened with Epstein and P. Diddy. Okay, there's no question to me that they're working for the intelligence apparatus. So the globalists have they've taken over the leadership position, or the top levels of our intelligence apparatus. There's 17 intelligence elements within the United States military and government. 17. They've taken over the top rungs. And there's no doubt that Epstein and P. Diddy were working for them in order to gain control of people of influence and power. Epstein was focusing on politicians and business people. P. Diddy was focusing on those that were entertainers, actors and actresses and performers. So they're gaining control. I mean, if you just take a look at, what's the young girl's name? Taylor Swift. She was a wholesome country girl when she started, right? Now, if you go to one of her concerts, it looks like a satanic worshiping session. If you look at Rihanna's Super Bowl performance a couple years ago, it was a satanic evolution. Katy Perry was a Christian singer, wasn't getting very far until she succumbed. And now you see what kind of stuff that is being pushed out there. It's happening in our face. They're rubbing it in our face. Okay? And the same thing with Epstein. So, Sabbatin Zevi was a Sabbatin Jew. You've all heard the Jewish people get attacked, correct? And it's by design. The Sabbatin Jews want that to happen. There's two different groups. The Torah Jewish people, those are God's chosen people, okay? The Sabbatin Jews, they would like to destroy every single Jewish person in the world so they can ensure that Jesus doesn't have a second coming. Okay? These are their beliefs. Next slide. So this is important. We're going to spend a minute here with the Rothschilds. So in 2014, there was a DNA study funded by the Nations Institute of Health and National Science Foundation. And they found that the Ashkenazi Jewish people came from the Mesopotamian area of the Middle East. This is the area between the Euphrates and Tigris River in Iraq. This is where the Tower of Babel was built. I spent time on that land. I know exactly where they're talking about. Several sources report that the Rothschilds believe themselves descendants from the Sumerian god king and descendants of Nimrod, the great-grandson of Noah, who tried to create the first global government. Okay? It is Nimrod who sought the one world government being controlled from the Tower of Babel. According to prestigious genealogical publications, one Rothschild born in 1922 was named Albert Anselm Solomon Nimrod Rothschild. Okay? They are Sabbatin Jewish. They don't pray to the same God we do. Now, to give you an idea of who these Rothschilds are, you're going to see them weaved in and out of this brief. They are the ones, well, Mayer Rothschild, the father, Frankfurt, is where he grew up. He was in the ghettos, but he learned early on that money is a tool for power and for control. And he had 5 sons, and he trained them the ruthless conduct that you can use money for power and influence. And then he sent them all across Europe to start the international banking system. And then he also, years down the road, created the Federal Reserve System in the United States and our central banks. This is a financial coup d'etat. It's predominantly through finances. They're controlling the world through finances. So they created these central banks, they created the international banks, and during the Napoleonic Wars, they were funding both sides of the war. They were funding the French, and they were funding the British. And they were making money hand over fist. Now, when the War of Waterloo happened, when Napoleon actually got beat, they had spies on the ground. And the spies on the ground sent back a honing pigeon with the news of what happened in the battle, that Napoleon had been beaten. Well, instead, what did they do? They lied to the people and said that the British had been beaten. The pound, the British pound, the value went plummeting. They, with all the resources, bought it all up. When the truth came out days later, the pound rebounded and exploded. They cashed out and made a killing. This is who they are. They have been doing this wash and repeat system from the Napoleonic Wars to the last war we just had and to the war that's going on in Ukraine. Okay? It's all a scam. And I'm a guy that went to Iraq, the Middle East 7 times after 9/11. It was all a scam. If you look at what happened, George Soros, you all know him, right? I say wash and repeat. George Soros is not allowed in multiple countries around the globe, to include Hungary, where he was born, because he did this. He was manipulating countries' currencies to become hyper wealthy, okay, and destroy a nation's wealth. He's not allowed to travel to multiple countries around the world, to include the country he was born in Hungary. But he's allowed to live here in America, in New York, and his best friend is Hillary Clinton. And he's the biggest donor to the Democrat Party. You see what we're dealing with here? Okay? Next slide, please. When the Illuminati was being exposed and outlawed in Germany, basically, Weishaupt realized that he needed to do something different. So he decided to move the Illuminati into the Freemasons. Okay, I know there's several Masons, probably some here tonight. Most of the Masons are all very good people. He chose the Masons because they knew they had an oath of secrecy and that they could continue their practices under the radar without being found. And so the way these secret societies work is they're shaped and organized like a rim of a bicycle, right? In the middle, where the spokes are, that's where the leadership is. And they're looking out. And they're able to see, they know who's inside, and they know what everybody's doing and how they're related to one another. The people that are involved in the groups, they're on the outside of the rim looking out. They don't know what's going on behind them, and oftentimes they don't even know who's operating to the side, to the left and right. But this is how the Illuminati was able to expand and flow across the whole country. So in 11 years, the Illuminati infiltrated nearly every court of the Holy Roman Empire through the Freemasonic lodges. And you know who they are because they support the theory, the end justifies the means. We're going to talk about that more. Next slide. Communism. Remember I told you at the first slide, who's a communist? All right. The goals of the Illuminati and the goals of communism are almost dovetailed. They're almost identical. And if you look at it, it's really about the abolition of inheritance, the abolition of private property, the abolition of individual homes and family life. You've heard me say at the beginning, this war is between those who love God, family, and country in the Constitution, and those that hate God, family, country, and the Constitution. We have come to find out that when Karl Marx was writing the Communist Manifesto, he was being funded by, guess who? Nathan Rothschild. There are checks that we have found from Rothschild to Karl Marx. Communism was developed as a tool to destroy countries so that they can bring in a one world government. So when you see politicians like the Democratic Party supporting communism, this is what they're supporting. They're supporting the destruction of the nation so they can better and more easily bring in a new world order. Next slide. Communism is not a movement of the downtrodden masses, but used by power-seeking billionaires in order to gain control of the world. First, by establishing socialist governments in the various nations, and then consolidating them all through a great merger into an all-powerful world socialist superstate, probably under the auspices of the United Nations. Gary Allen, another author and subject. So does this all make sense? When you see Americans, and there's a lot of people out there, I've talked to people, I'm not a radical left, I just believe in communism or socialism. I said, well, you're nuts, you don't know what you're talking about. I don't believe they're globalists, and I don't believe they're evil, I just think they're ignorant. Okay, and that's what the problem is with most of these people. But unless you're a critical thinker and you seek the truth, you're going to believe it, because anywhere you look on TV, anywhere you look on the news, anywhere you look in your media, it's all giving you a false information. Next slide. I'll go over this one real quick, but this is by Henry Macau. He's another great source who's been studying the subject for a matter. History is unfolding according to the Illuminati's long-term plan. Wars are plotted decades in advance and orchestrated to achieve the destruction of nations and natural elites, also natural leaders. Okay, depopulation, demoralization, and of course power and profit. The super rich have organized themselves into a satanic cult to prey on mankind and to establish their permanent hegemony. Put yourself in the central banker's shoes. The nations of the world owe you trillions based on money you printed for the cost of paper and ink. The only way to protect this investment is to establish a thinly designed dictatorship using sophisticated methods of social and mind control. This is the true meaning of the war on terror. It's not directed at Muslim terrorists. It's directed at you and me. I will tell you, you all know Wesley Clark, right? General Wesley Clark. He's a Democrat, and I was never a big fan of him, but he said something that really was enlightening and very informative. He, shortly after 9/11, was in the Pentagon. And he goes, "You're not going to believe what happened to me when I was in the Pentagon." What happened? I was pulled in by a colleague of mine. He said, Sir, we got a plan to go forward after 9/11. I said, "Yeah, what is it?" "Well, we're going to go into Iraq, and then we're going to go into 6 other countries in the Middle East, and we're going to do regime change." It's like, why the hell are we doing that? If we had 19 Saudis to do, at least the narrative. 9/11 was a complete inside job. It's a whole other subject. But the narrative was that the Saudis did this. Why are we going to do that? I don't know, but that's the plan. If you look, now that was about 20 years ago. Those 7 countries were Iraq, Libya, Lebanon, Sudan, Somalia, Syria, and then if you haven't looked, they've all been regime changed or they're in the middle of a civil war right now. The only one that on that list that hasn't been touched is Iran. And are you listening to the news right now? Do not be surprised within the next year we're at war with Iran to do regime change. All these wars are plotted decades in advance. And they're not for freedom, as I believed. And they're not to protect us and our Constitution. It's designed to make these evil, globalist, Satanists wealthy and protected. Next slide. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but this is just a couple names you've probably seen, you've probably heard, but these are some of the prominent bloodlines of the Illuminati. Astor, Collins, Freemason. Y'all know Ted Bundy? Okay. Ted Bundy, this is just a little bit of the in-your-face they like to do. But Ted Bundy plays a buffoonish character on Married with Children, right? It's a comedy. And he's a football star from Polk High School. And in the movie, he always wears his jersey that says Bundy, and then the number. You know what number he has on? Al Bundy. Al Bundy. But you know what number he has on? 33. You know what 33 is? Is
that the number of women Ted Bundy killed?
No, Bundy, no, yeah, we're not talking about Ted Bundy. We're talking about Bundy on the show. But 33 is the number of vertebrae in your back that lead to your head. And it's the number that the Freemasons use for their elite. Bundy, 33. That's just an example of the kind of stuff that's in your face if you're scratching the surface. Next slide. The Masons use it. So they have a 33-degree Mason. Those are the elite.
Would that be why 33 is on the bottle of, oh my God, Rolling Rock beer?
I don't know.
From Latrobe, Pennsylvania?
I know Latrobe. Yeah, it's a good point. I'd have to do some look. I do not know that. So real quickly, I'm just going to get back here real quick. But the modern Illuminati, okay, there are credible reports that say that they were the ones that ordered the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand to start World War I. And the Nazis were more than a political movement, and they saw themselves as a quasi-religious movement born out of a secret organization whose goals were the same as found in the Illuminati. Now, I'm going to say some things here that are going to blow your mind, because it blew my mind. Adolf Hitler's grandmother worked as a servant at a very large mansion inside Germany, and the mansion belonged to Baron Rothschild. While she was a servant to the household, she got pregnant. She ended up having an illegitimate child. That illegitimate child is Hitler's father. Hitler is a Sabbatan Jew. And the Sabbatan Jews want what with the Jewish people? They want to destroy them all so they can prevent the second coming. Now, the thing that gives us credibility is the intelligence. The United States intelligence apparatus knows about this, and they've never said anything about it. It's been kept silent. It's been kept mum. George Soros. He's Jewish, but he's a Sabbatan Jew. And during the war, he was helping the Nazis identify the Jewish people, which almost ensured their demise. He was on 60 Minutes years ago to try to boost up his image. And when he was asked about, well, you were working for the Nazis, identifying Jewish people, getting them killed, don't you feel bad? No. It was a response that only a satanic, evil bastard could have responded. They were working hard to give this guy a chance to look good in the eyes of the world. And he just confirmed exactly what we know. He's an evil bastard, okay? So Soros, during World War II, worked with the Nazis to kill Jewish people. He's a Sabbatan Jew. Do you know who his best friend is today? Do you know who Soros' best friend today is, besides Hillary? Klaus Schwab. Klaus Schwab is the founder and leader of the World Economic Forum. Klaus Schwab is German. Klaus Schwab's father was an undeniable Nazi who worked for the Hitler regime. They're best friends. And you want to know who the mentor was to Klaus Schwab? Henry Kissinger, a Sabbatan Jew and American Secretary of State. Henry Kissinger was the mentor to Klaus Schwab and facilitated his organization to be created, the World Economic Forum. Okay, you see where we're going with this? Israel. After World War II, Israel was created. The Rothschilds take credit for the creation of Israel. Why would a Sabbatan Jew want a nation for the Jewish people where they're all in one location?
So they can annihilate them easy?
So they're going to be easier to kill. Okay? They want them centrally located in order to kill and destroy them. That is their goal. This is the world we are living in. This is the evil that's around us. Nobody's ever said this to you, I'm sure. I never knew a damn thing about it. But this should be published on every single billboard, on every single news outlet, on every single T-shirt. If we are going to win this battle against this evil. Now, it's in God's hands, absolutely, and God will make sure it's done right. But I think He wants a few of us warriors to step up and give Him a hand. So we shall. And if you look at World War II, obviously it achieved a lot of Illuminati goals. Germany, Italy, and Japan were pretty much devastated. 60 million people died. They want a low population. Ultimately, these people want 500 million people globally. We got 360 million in America alone. Think about that. 7 billion, going on 8 billion people. I talked a little bit about the movies and so forth. The vaccine. Do you all know what country was the first to have the majority of their population vaccinated? Israel. Israel. Okay? Next slide. We're gonna go a little bit faster. We're gonna go over this one real quick. Yeah, go next slide. Okay, Dr. Anthony Sutton. He's a British-born fellow at the Hoover Institute. He is a phenomenal academic. I have done several interviews with one of his partners. His name is Patrick Wood. They were experts on the trilateral, which is another branch of the globalists, okay? But he discovered that in spite of the Cold War, the U.S. was supplying the USSR with its technology, including weapons used against American soldiers in Vietnam. When he dug deeper, he discovered that the Wall Street had sponsored both the Bolshevik Revolution and the rise of Nazi Germany. He's got resulting basically destroyed his career. He believes this is a fight that's not between the left and the right. And I've said this before, and I'm going to amplify it today. But we are in a battle right now, and it's not between left and right. It's not between Democrats and Republicans. It's not between blacks and whites or Catholics and Protestants. It's not between any of that. It is between patriots, we that love God, family, country, and the Constitution, and satanic globalists, those that hate God, family, country, and the Constitution. And you only have to look around today to find out who's on whose side. Look at what has happened to our nation in the last 4 years. They have attacked God. They've attacked our family and our children. It's devastating. Our country, and of course our Constitution.
Don't talk to me.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. Why? How old are they?
44 and 42.
Okay.
They were product of the Batavia school system in Northern Illinois.
Yeah. Well, this is the reason. We're going to get to that in a second, but I'm sorry to hear that. But But this is the fight we're in right now. It's not left and right. It's not Democrats and Republicans. It's between patriots and satanic globalists. That's the battle. Next slide. Dr. Sutton believes the order has many weaknesses resulting from inbred gene theory and so forth. But at the bottom line, you have to focus on the center of gravity. And I've talked to you about this before, and I'm going to emphasize it because the center of gravity is absolutely essential. First, if you don't know when you're in a war, that's problem number one. If you realize you're in a war and don't know who you're fighting against, that's another problem. Okay, now Sun Tzu talked about that, right? If you're in a war and you know yourself and you know the enemy in 1,000 battles, you're going to win every one. If you know yourself but you don't know the enemy, for every battle you win, you're going to lose. If you don't know the enemy and don't know yourself, you're not going to win a single battle. So it's imperative that you understand, one, we're in a war, and then two, who the enemy is. And when you look at the enemy, you have to find out what the center of gravity is of the enemy. What's the center of gravity? The center of gravity is what gives the enemy its strength, and if taken away, will ensure its demise. The globalists' center of gravity is their monopoly on finance and the narrative. The narrative. If they're controlling everything we know, that's why nobody knows what's going on. The secret must not be a secret. How come this is the first time I would imagine every one of you have ever heard anything I'm talking about? Okay. Well, this is a smart group, so I believe it. Yeah, you're right.
Research and help people, they literally.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about people I know all for.
Yeah.
Think you're nuts.
Yeah.
But that's why the Bible clearly states that this times we're in.
That's right.
It's up here.
Yeah, absolutely. There you go. Yes, sir.
I'm totally blown away. Pilot's license out of Teterboro, New Jersey, and I was there a mile and a half away when I watched the planes hit. And I knew instantly when the planes hit, that was no accident. And now to hear that it's an inside job, and I've been always, protesting my friends. No, I was there, so it was an inside job. It's totally flipped. My entire reality is inside out right now.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I've written some. Well, I hope so. I'm glad, and that's. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you some great news, and I could, but I would be doing you a disservice. The truth is going to set us free, and it's imperative that we know the enemy, and it's imperative that we know what their weakness is, so we can go after it, which is telling the truth, exposing the truth. They can't survive the truth, and if the truth shall kill them, we must let them die. Okay, because that is where we are. That is where we are. I wrote a great article. I wrote an article with lots of sources on the Substack account, 9/11, the inside job. But you can take a look at it. It's worth the look, and I got lots of sources, and I can talk at hours about that incident alone. But almost everything that we have been told by our government and by our media, I would say definitely going back to John F. Kennedy. In fact, a lot of people I've talked to, a lot of sources say that's when things changed. Once the JFK assassination took place and they were able to lie to the American people about who did it, they lost respect for the American people and they said, screw these people, I can tell them whatever I want. And we have been told that. We have been giving no respect. We have been giving no truth. Everything is a manipulation and everything is a falsehood. Now, that's not to say there aren't bits of truth in things that are being said on the media and by our politicians, but the overall theme is a lie. Next slide. How do you know we won? I think it's missing something, but that's fine. You know we won if we get rid of the central banks. You know we won if we get rid of the Federal Reserve. You know we won if we see justice, and I use this case a lot because it's so blatantly obvious, to Biden, a traitor, who took tens of millions of dollars from the Chinese in order to give him comfort. Obama, Hillary, Pelosi, Schumer, all these corrupt bastards that we know through open source. We don't even have to have classified information. What we are seeing, it's proven that they are traitors. So I love what's going on today. It's important we balance our budget. It's important, we get to the truth on some matters. I said years ago, if the American people ever knew, because I worked on the Hill as a fellow and then I worked in the Pentagon as a battle captain, but I said if the American people on in Washington, D.C., there would be a revolution tomorrow. It's that rotten. We are seeing a glimpse.
People who spoke up,
Yeah,
gone, they
yeah,
get rid of them.
yeah.
Hit by a car, suicide. You know, it's all set up.
I know. But do you realize there were 6 police officers, to include the sergeant of arms on the Senate, that committed suicide after January 6th?
I've heard it, yes.
They didn't commit suicide. You understand what's going on. They knew what was going on. It was totally inside job.
Like Vince Foster, he shot himself twice.
Yeah.
Can everyone hold their comments till
Okay, yeah. I think we're almost done. Let's go next slide, please. So basic conclusions. Right now, the Bavarian Order of the Illuminati no longer exists. However, the philosophies and the doctrines that predate the Illuminati back to millennium still do. And we can see them happening today. So today we have, I'm going to call them the globalists because I think it's the easiest way to do it because it gets confusing. You got all these names, all these terms, globalists. But they tend to come back from the Illuminati and some of these ancient civilizations and secret societies, but they all have the same philosophy and doctrines. You can tell who they are because they follow the Illuminati maxim or the globalist maxim that the end justifies the means. Now, you know who taught that? Machiavelli. Do you know who else taught that? Saul Alinsky. Everybody know who Saul Alinsky is? Okay, academic, University of Chicago, community organizer. You ever seen his book, Rules for Radicals? Did you ever see who it was dedicated to? His book, Rules for Radical, this is the mentor of Hillary and Obama in Chicago, is dedicated to Lucifer. And that's no joke. I mean, you can go look at it. He's a Sabbatan Jew. You see what I'm saying? Fortunately, a growing number of people realize that a handful of international bankers and financiers control the global economy and hence most governments. If you all feel that your government's not serving you or working for you, it's because they aren't. These elected officials, once they're in, and you know this, they are being blackmailed by folks like Epstein and P. Diddy. And by the way, they're not the only ones. And they aren't the first, okay? You get in there, you get controlled real quick. And I'll use that story of Madison Cawthorn. You all know him, right? Did we talk about that before? So Madison Cawthorn was a young congressman in a wheelchair, goes to D.C., good conservative. He goes, "You're not going to believe what happened to me last night." What happened? Well, I was invited to a party in D.C. You're not going to believe who was there. The highest ranking people on the Hill. There was drugs. There was sex. They wanted me to partake. The next day, Kevin McCarthy came out, Speaker of the House, said, "Oh, that kid's crazy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's this. And the next thing you know, they ran against him, another candidate, and got him out of office shortly after it. And he was a young up-and-comer, very good conservative. He was young, so he was kind of silly, but he was good. But that should be very telling to all of us. And when you see Tom Cotton do his stupid things, or pick your politician, it takes a very rare breed to stay principled and be willing to fight. I think there's probably only a handful that are doing it, and they're not doing it completely. Sadly, I think President Trump is awesome, and I think he's doing everything he can. We'll see who's in charge. If he's running the show, we're going to see traitors like Biden and Obama and Hillary and the others be dealt with justified, right? We're going to see. Well, there you go. If nothing happens, nothing happens. If we don't, I haven't seen what happened with the JFK files. I haven't seen what happened with the MLK files. I haven't seen what happened with the RFK files. If nothing is being said, the Epstein files, the P. Diddy files, nothing happens, nothing happens. We're in the same boat we were the other day, other than we have a few, we know that there's a few things that are out there, and USAID was fraudulent, but we knew that from the beginning. I call this, what we're seeing right now, and I love Trump, and I think he's done an awesome job, but I also understand these people are powerful. Do you realize what Elon Musk said the other day? He goes, "Hey, I kind of have to be careful with what I'm talking about with this corruption. My life is in danger if I say too much." Yeah, this is an evil game. But the way we win it is not by being fearful and staying silent, but by we all standing up and speak the truth. They cannot survive the truth, and that is why we must reveal it. Yes, sir.
Truth is marching on. No wonder 2 assassination attempts.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Well, you got the impeachments. You got the lawfare. You got the court cases. You got the assassination attempts. And it's not over. It's not over. Okay? So I think he's great, but the problem is he's also practical. If he can't get what he really wants, he'll get what he can. There's negotiations made. Right now, I believe that's where we are. I hope it changes. I hope it changes. 6 Illuminati-led corporations push 90% of everything we're seeing here, like I talked to you about. Secrecy is vital to the globalists, the Illuminati, but keeping the plan unbelievable is even more so. Okay? So they have to remain secret, but more importantly, their goals, they have to make it feel unbelievable. Remember, I talked about the people who said, I refuse to believe that. There's a group of people like that want to take over the world and destroy us and put us all into a digital concentration camp. I don't believe that. Well, I mean, it's not about belief. It's about what do you know? Yes, ma'am.
I think about this a lot because, so say they get what they want.
Yeah.
What's the end game for them? That's the question I have. What's the end game for them? They increase population. They make us all,
Yeah. Real quick, go to the next slide. Because I think we're going to. I'm going to talk this through, and then I'm going to answer that question. Because I think we're almost done, so I just want to start the conversation because I think we're there. This is the best slide in the world. If you don't know it, take a picture of it. I'll share it. You can have it. Yeah. This is the organization chart of the globalists, the people that are leading the charge to destroy sovereignty and create a one-world government. Now, it's not everybody in these organizations, but it's the leadership. It's the leadership up top. This is the Bank of International Settlements, I told you. This is a financial coup d'etat. These are the central banks. World Economic Forum, Council of Foreign Relations, Club of Rome, Chatham House, Rockefellers, add Trilateral Commission there, and BlackRock. The policy distributors, United Nations, evil. International Monetary Fund, evil. The IPC, which is the International Protocol on Climate Change, garbage, evil. The World Bank, the World Health Organization, the philanthropists, the global corporations, the non-government organizations. These are all the ones that are distributing. You got the policy enforcers, which include our national governments, military, NHS, etc. And then you got the policy propagandists. This is our military, our fact checkers, and all that. And then you got the public. But this is the best org chart I have seen for those that are trying to destroy us. And again, it's not everybody in these organizations, but it's the key people. You will not get promoted and put into the right spots if you're not going to do what you're told. Okay? I think that's it. So we'll leave that up there so people can look at it, but I'll take the question. So what is the ultimate end state? The ultimate end state, according to my good friend Patrick Wood, who's the expert on all things related to technocracy, and again, this can get complicated. Technocracy is what technocrats want to do. Technocrats are engineers and scientists, and they believe they are semi-gods. And they want to recreate a whole new world. They've done it with plants, with GMOs. They've done it with animals, with cloning. They're now trying to do it with people, with mRNA. They're trying to recreate the entire world to include the system that controls it. And they're godlike. So that's the technocratic view. Some people believe that they're from out of this world, right? This information, now this is a little bit mystical, okay? So I'm not going to put a whole lot of weight into it. But in ancient civilizations, everybody talks about this information came from the skies. So it's either angels or aliens, all right? And if it's aliens, then that means they're from out of this world, and that's why they want to destroy this. The real answer is I'm not 100% sure what's their end state, other than they want complete control, a one-world government, down to a small population where they live great, right? Look what they did in Maui. Look what they did in LA. Look what they did in South Carolina, North Carolina. All these places now are scheduled to become smart cities. This is a transition. They're trying to recreate the entire universe, right, essentially, with people, with the environment, with these smart cities, with us. It's evil. It's evil and satanic.
They're planning that in California where all those fires were.
That's right. Well, that's right. And they announced it. 28 is the Olympics, and they're going to create a smart city. And this is very concerning. You've all seen the movie Brave New World, or read the book, or 1984. These are brilliant pieces of literature that are falling in front of us. But that is what they want, a complete control. And do that. Everything's within 15 minutes, right? You're home, you work, there's a camera on every single corner. They got facial recognition, retina scans. Has anybody gone to the airport lately? Do not go through Clear. Do not let them take a picture of your face. It's optional. They want to try to continue, ignore all that crap. So, sorry I didn't have a better answer for you. I'm not 100% sure what the end state is other than to create pure evil. Yes, ma'am.
Hey, Colonel, how you doing?
Good,
Thank
Lana.
you. Great presentation. But two questions.
Yeah.
One, the quicker one is J.D. Vance. Do we need to be worried about him since we are always worried about somebody taking out Trump? And then the second question is, what's the battle plan? Is there one to, I guess,
Address
counter
this?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. First question, J.D. Vance. Obviously, we like him. I like him. How can you not? He's a Marine. He's smart. He's a patriot. He's doing everything right, we appear. He was basically created with his relationship with Peter Thiel. Okay, do you know who Peter Thiel is? Okay, Peter Thiel is a technocrat. Well, he's from Silicon Valley. He started, was it PayPal? He started PayPal with Elon Musk. So, and my good friend, the technocrats, is very concerned about Elon because these are technocrats. These are people that, and if you look at Elon Musk's father or grandfather, anybody know his story? But back to JD. JD was built by this guy. Peter Thiel put lots of money into him. They worked together on some finance work, and then he kind of propped him up to get him set up for politics and got him through the election to win the Senate in Ohio through his funding. He's one of the wealthiest men in the world, Peter Thiel. He and Elon Musk were friends, but they're not as close as they used to be. But so do I like him? Yeah, but money talks. Money is powerful. Money controls, and I'm very skeptical now. Talk is cheap. I appreciate what you have to say, but what can you do? So again, if we don't see anything significantly change in our politics, then we know we haven't won yet. We know who's still in charge. So if these traitors that we know are not being tried, we're in trouble. If nothing is done against the genocide of COVID, we're in trouble. Okay? If we continue to create these wars and try to start World War III and go after Iran, we're in trouble. But that's where we are. So I like them. Great presentation. But there's some very questionable relationships in the background that we all need to be concerned about. Nobody should be saying, oh, he's awesome, he's the greatest guy. We like him. But let's see some activity. As for the course of action, how are we going to win? I wish I had something more sophisticated, but Anthony Sutton said it's going to be very unique. Because these people have so much power and so much money, we can't organize. It's going to have to be done in 10,000 different ways. This is one way. We talking about it, we going out and sharing it, we waking people up. It's called the Great Awakening for a reason. Okay? We're on that verge right now. A lot of people believe that we're going to win because the dam has cracks in it. The dam of lies that has prevented the truth from coming out has cracks in it. And now that it's going to, these holes and cracks are getting bigger, it's going to come down. And when it does, we're going to have peace. If you look at it biblically, it's going to be a little bit more rough. Right? We've got some tribulations coming up. But at the end of the day, I think the most important thing we have to do is share the truth. The truth shall set us free. These bastards can't survive the truth. So let's let it rip.
Well, you mentioned, now I know this is a very emotional topic and people have many ideas on it, but the idea of the Holocaust. Now, some people think that it was George Lincoln Rockwell back in the 60s was an American Nazi who said it was a falsehood. But now what you mentioned in your statement, in your presentation, was that as a result of the Holocaust, the Israelite state was created. Now, was that a whole cabal to make Israel a state, or I don't say that Holocaust. I don't know, but I mean, what's your position on that?
Well, according to the studies that I have, I mean, the Holocaust, I believe, is completely legitimate. There's enough data to prove that, right? So that is not an issue. Now, was it created? I think it was an opportunistic move. I think after World War II, it created an environment for them to seize the moment of sorts. And the Rothschilds created, we have to do something. Let's do this. Let's create this state. Israelis to get them all in one place. So I don't think it was planned beforehand. I think it was probably something that they looked at as an opportunity that came up at the end of the war. Okay. But yeah, it's hard to say. But thank you,
Larry.
Joe.
So now everybody here has seen all this.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. And you tell us to go talk about it.
Yeah.
And we're going to say, we saw this guy named Larry Kaifesh. Mm-hmm. Where do we go? Where do we direct people so they can see this for themselves?
Well, I think we filmed this. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, we
We're
filmed
filming
this.
it.
So if you can, go home, get the film of it. If you liked it, push it out to all your friends and family. Just say, just watch. Just watch. If you have questions, let me know. Go to my Substack account, Substack Larry Kaifesh, Constitutional Colonel. You can sign up, and you're going to see. I took a little bit of a break after the election to see how things were unfolding, but now I see where we are, and I knew what I have to do. So I'm going to be doing a lot more of this. We're going to be going deeper. We're going to be going further, and we're going to be giving more clarity. So I'm going to be putting a lot more stuff out, but you can get on it, follow my leads, share it with your family and friends, and hopefully have them do the same. But at the end of the day, that's really what we have to do. If this is an information war, and it really is, it's a financial and information war, we have to get truth out. So thanks for asking, Joe. But yeah, Substack, get the copy of this video. If you like it, push it to all your friends and family and say, it's time to wake up, saddle up.
The video is on our website.
Okay?
Will be. It takes a few days.
Yeah,
Devin
no
is the
problem.
person that puts it out. So it will be, and with all the slides. He incorporates all the slides in.
So Rand Paul and Ron and his dad Ron are good. Seem like good people. They've been saying for a long time to get rid of the Federal Reserve, right? So, is cryptocurrency the solution for that to be decentralized?
Yeah, Ron Paul, his father is awesome. I love that guy. Rand is pretty good, but his dad was awesome. Digital currencies. Well, what we do not want, the absolute thing we do not want, is a central bank digital currency. Remember what they run. This is a financial coup d'etat. What they're trying to do right now is to destroy our economy. That's why we're $36 trillion in debt. And by the way, there's some very smart people out there that have done research, looked at our budget for the last 20 plus years. We're $36 trillion in debt that we see. There's $22 trillion we don't have receipts for on top of the 36. So this is but look at this. The Rothschilds have been printing money of no value. The best thing we can do is have a gold standard. Get our currency back. And I know Joe's working with, well, I don't know if I can talk about it, but I know he's working with some very smart people that are in the world of finance that are trying to help facilitate a currency that is backed by gold or an asset. But right now we have what we call a fiat currency. There's nothing behind it. It's only worth the paper it's printed on. So, and this is something we got to be very concerned about, because a lot of people think, oh, everything's pretty good. Why should we be worried? Everything looks pretty good. Well, we're all eating healthy. Hell, I go to a restaurant, it's packed, right? Everywhere you go, you're like, oh. This is a funny story, side story. I'm at the gym. I go to a gym down in Texas, and I'm with a friend of mine, and he's a businessman. He's a Mormon. He's like, the gym's packed. It's the middle of the day. Now, I'm retired, but I work at home. So I'm like, when I work, though, who could go to a gym in the middle of the day? I'm looking around, and it's full of people, not retired people, young people. I'm like, how do these guys do it? But anyway, but the point is, we think we got this great thing, but it could be taken away in a heartbeat. Look at what happened to these poor people in LA who had their insurance taken away a week before the fires, their $1 million homes burned down, and they're left with schlitz. That can happen very quickly. Look at what's happening to our insurance with all these geoengineered. We don't have climate change. We got geoengineered. They're manipulating the weather, creating these disasters. Our insurance is going off the roof, right? I just called my home insurance. I said, what do we got to do something about this? He goes, I know. But if insurance goes a little higher for our cars and our homes, if interest rates goes a little higher, you know, it can change things real quickly. So we think we're comfortable right now, but this could all change in a heartbeat in the financial world. So the best thing we can have is a currency that's backed by an asset, gold preferably. And we've talked about that. And, you know, we got off the gold currency in 1972 with Nixon. But, Joe, I mean, if you ever want to talk further about that, let me know. But, did that answer your question? Yeah, okay. Did that answer your question, ma'am? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Larry?
Sir.
Yes, you mentioned a couple of times George Soros. And
Yeah.
we know George Soros is the guy who finances non-prosecuting prosecutors.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's an explosion of crime.
Yeah.
What's his point in that?
Well, what he realized is, again, what are they trying to do? They're trying to destroy the country. One of the easiest ways to do it is to buy off these judges, because it really doesn't take much to win a judgeship, and you can do it with $100,000. If you try to get a senator or a congressperson, it's a lot more expensive. So with $100,000, you can get a judge in there that's going to do what you want. And if you have a judge that stops enforcing the laws, you have mayhem. It's not a coincidence that during the last 4 years, because of these judges, that crime was at record levels. That was the whole design. And then what did they want to do? We got these terrible judges. Let's defund the police now. That wasn't done because of any other. That was an orchestrated move to continue to destroy America. You want to destroy America? You open the border and let an invasion take place. You want to destroy America? You allow crime go rampant. You want to destroy America? You push jabs in everybody that's harmful and lethal. You want to destroy America? You go after the kids. You warp their minds with pornography and DEI and all this crazy garbage. They hate their country. This has been a systematic approach, and it's been going on for a long time. We only now are starting to wake up to it. That answer your question, sir? Okay. Did that answer, sir? Yeah.
So,
did that answer the question you had? Okay, thank you, sir.
So, first of all, there's so much going on since Trump became president. It's hard to keep up, and it's great. But you mentioned the gold, and a couple weeks ago, it was like we're going into Fort Knox, and I haven't heard anything about it. So that's something we need to follow up on. Yeah. But when Trump addressed the World Economic Forum, he wasn't there, but he addressed it.
Yep.
And was perfect because he kind of laid it out to the whole world on what we're going to do, whether they like it or not. And so the question is, can him and Musk, I mean, some people will look at those two and say, oh, we have, you know, we don't want some of the richest people in the world running things because they're compromised and this and that. And I can see that. But at the same time, I think they're both giving up a lot and taking a lot of risk doing what they're doing. So I feel good about having them on our side because of that, because they don't need the money per se, like so many others do. They get rich, you know, from being in politics. So the question to you is, you know, is this org chart that you see here, how much of it has been kind of shot holes in it since Trump was inaugurated and Doge is doing its thing? And I mean, can we expect that it will continue, or are we going to be blinded by, you know, like I said 2 weeks ago, Fort Knox was supposed to be going into, and we haven't heard anything about it.
Right. That's a good question. So where are we? When it comes to this organization chart, we are seeing some positive actions, okay? For example, the World Health Organization, right? Did we pull out of there? Yeah, we pulled out of the World Health. That's beautiful. That is amazing. I would say we need to get rid of every single one of these, to include this. So when you hear him talk about getting rid of the central banks, that's a beautiful thing. When we get out of NATO and the United Nations, all these globalist entities. Yeah. So I do think, you know, we're holding these non-government organizations that are you know, creating harm to our country. They're being defunded. So we are seeing progress, no question about it. It's small, but you got to start somewhere. So I'm positive. I'm happy with what we're seeing. We're definitely seeing progress. Would I like to see more? Yeah. Will it happen? I think so. But you know, I think it's going to happen a lot sooner if we have a lot more people asking the questions. You know, like President Trump came out the other day and he signed a executive order saying you can no longer mandate vaccines in public schools. That's good. But Fauci should be hanging. You see the difference?
Yeah.
This is a genocide. And there's the data's there to prove it, and I can talk hours about that. Okay? So, again, this is what I call cookie crumbs. You want a cookie? You get a crumb to kind of satisfy your quest, but you're not getting what you want. So I think, let's face it, this is not easy. These people have been ingrained for decades. And like I said, this goes back to the beginning of time. This is not yesterday. It's been going on from the beginning. 1776, the Illuminati was created. That's the same year our nation was founded. Okay, so from the very beginning. So, yeah, I do believe the more the truth gets out, the more action we're going to see. We're going to have to guilt people into doing a little bit more than they feel comfortable doing.
I wanted to say, when I talk to a lot of people, wherever I go, luncheons, doctors, etc., I'm always telling them, stand up, speak up, and show up for your children.
Yeah.
You've got to say something. You made a lot of different comments here, and I have actually seen Flynn in person.
Yeah.
I'm especially annoyed with the idea that you said Sydney is not on our team. But
She is. No, Sidney Powell is.
Is she? Okay.
Oh, yeah, Sidney Powell's, she's been attacked. She's been quiet.
Yes.
They put her down. They tried to arrest her. No, Sidney Powell is awesome.
And Flynn is still working with us too.
Flynn's great.
Okay.
Flynn's
Because
one
I've
of the
had
rare few.
I've had
Yeah.
a lot of people saying detracting things about him. You just made another comment about the gold standard, and it seems to me, this is going back at least 10 years ago, that you had companies coming out of the woodwork wanting to have gold parties. I think what they were trying to do is to divest the people of the gold that they had, because gold is more negotiable than this currency that's worth nothing. Going along with that same idea, do you believe that there is Nasera Jacera that may be coming to a fruition?
An era of what?
Nasera Jazera, which happens to do with the new currency coming
Yeah.
to existence?
Seeing is believing. We want this. We know there's some initiatives out there that are taking place. I don't have enough clarity or visibility on it, but I mean, at the end of the day, that's really what we need, and that would mitigate their monopoly on the finances, right? If we had a currency that's backed by an asset. So I'm not sure. I don't know where that is right now. I hope so, but I think we need to watch patiently. Oh, okay, we'll go to here, and then we'll maybe back to Luana. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay, do you think we will actually be able to prove 2020 was stolen? In my opinion, we really have to.
Yeah. I think already the data is overwhelming.
I know, but I mean, I thought 2,000 Mules did it, and then he got caught. He found one bad guy, or he made a mistake and had to backtrack.
Yeah.
I think it was stolen, and I just want to know: do you think we'll ever be able to prove to the country beyond a reasonable doubt?
Yeah.
Because I think that's essential.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I believe. Well, I think we all know it was a stolen election. Do I believe we'll have justice? Well, we're going to have justice if we get back in charge. If we're not back in charge, they're going to continue to lie about it and try to push January 6th. So it's really determined. We really need to see where we are. Do we really have power with this administration? President Trump should be the first one to want to make sure that we have justice on it. We know the data's there. It's overwhelming. But we didn't have a medium. We didn't have a political party that was fighting for that. So we were allowing this lie to exist. I think it's dependent. If we're in charge, the good guys, the patriots who love God, family, country, Constitution, we will prove and justice will be had. If not, it's because the evil Satanist globalists are still in charge. So it really depends. It's going to be an indicator. That's a fair weather balloon. Okay, well, who's in charge? When you start seeing major things topple, then you know we're on the right path. Right now, I'm happy. Am I excited? Not 100%, but I'm happy. So we need more.
Okay, a couple things. One is I'm going to pick my poison, right? Things like COVID, that backfired on them. Parents finally saw what schools were doing, right?
Yeah.
So things like that they're doing, I want to become more fluent, and that's why I'm picking your poison, right? The COVID we can talk about, 9/11 we could talk about, and discredit, the people that, well, I guess help the people that aren't unbelievers be believers. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And then I almost forgot my next question. Pam Bondi, she has not moved and shaked anything. So or unless I'm wrong.
Well, yeah, I mean, what was the question?
Is she good or not?
Pam, again, I think they're good. I think they want. I think Trump is good. I think Elon is mostly good. I think Pam Bondi is good, but it's not about being good. It's about who's in control. If they don't have control, if they're still being controlled by the big money people, they're not going to do what they said they were going to do. And that's what we need to be concerned about. And right now, like I said, I think we can all be happy, but I don't think we should all be excited. I don't think celebration is in order. I don't think they've proven. When the Epstein files come out and I see someone get hung for pedophilia, then we know it's working. When Fauci and gang are charged with crimes against humanity for a genocide, bioweapon, then we're doing it in the right direction. But until we get that, it's all happy horseshit. What's that? Yeah, but who are they controlled by? Remember I talked about slide 2030? Force Design 2030? All the generals are on board. They're afraid. They got rid of all the all the folks that would say something and not go along with it. So they're a compliant force right now, in my opinion. My opinion, yeah. So we got to determine that. Yes, sir.
Colonel, what do you think about this Prince of Morocco? There's things going around that he's the anointed one for the final world empire. Have you seen anything on that?
Oh, is it the Antichrist or this?
Yeah, there's a lot of that going around where they're like he's the final.
Yeah.
That's their anointed guy for the whole.
Yeah. You're talking about the Antichrist.
Guy. Yeah. Yes.
I mean, I know there's much more biblical scholars. Like my brother-in-law is pretty good, but obviously we won't know to the minute. But there's certain parameters. Yeah, he's a person that's been discussed. There's another gentleman in Germany that's been discussed. I mean, it does appear that with what we see happening with world affairs, that the Antichrist is probably on this planet right now. Okay. I don't know.
They bow to him. They kiss his. I mean, he's had a lot of Muslim leaders there where they treat him like a god.
Yeah. I don't know enough about him per se, but let's just say, I mean, right now with what we are seeing, there's a good chance that that person's on the planet right now.
Larry,
yes, ma'am.
This is a fairly complex issue.
Super, yeah.
And we have 3 grown children they have children of their own. How do you give them an explanation of 101 simple because they're not going to listen for me for an hour to explain this.
Yeah. That is the problem. I mean, this is not a simple solution. The easiest way is, I think what you might have to do is identify that you shouldn't be listening to our government and media anymore. And you can do that by highlighting the lies, okay? And there's plenty out there. And just look at what's happening over the last 3-4 years. We have learned that everything was a lie. Russian collusion was a lie. January 6th was a lie. 2020 election was a lie. So almost everything that's being pushed has been proven to be false. So you can say, look at, maybe just pick one. This is our government. This is our media. They've lied to us. In the world of intelligence, in the military, once you have a source that destroys their credibility, you don't listen to them anymore. Nobody should be listening to corporate TV, corporate media. Nobody should be listening to their politicians, especially the ones that have lied to you consistently. But people do it. They listen. So it's a hard nut to crack. You got to be subtle. Again, these people have been bombarded for decades. I call it is brainwashing. I mean, put it quite simple. They can no longer differentiate the truth from the falsehoods. Okay, so I think you got to. Are they willing?
Oh yes, they know a lot from what I know, but they're not knowledgeable about the New World Order.
Yeah.
And I have been reading about this has all been prophesized. I've been about 35.
Yeah.
I thought it was science fiction, but it's actually happening today.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just they don't want the doom and gloom part.
Yeah. I will. I'm going to recommend a documentary, and I'm going to recommend it because I think it's short enough, it's engaging enough, but it kind of highlights everything we're talking about. It's called Planet Lockdown. Planet Lockdown. And the star of this is a woman by the name of Catherine Austin Fitts. Now, Catherine Austin Fitts is a brilliant woman.
Really good.
We love her. I mean, I listen to everything she says. Okay? She comes from a very unique background. Her father was a surgeon. Her mother was a professional. She has the best pedigree in the world. I think she went to Wharton School of Business. She ended up working on Wall Street, had her own firm, made a lot of money. And then she saw in the 1990s what was happening, and that this is a financial coup d'etat. And she started speaking up, and she was ousted from the club. Okay? There have been threats to her life. She has a publication called the Solari Report. But she talks this through in a very simple format, and that's why I'm going to recommend it, because I just think she's brilliant. But in Planet Lockdown, with her editing a good portion of it, it'll wake, I think, anybody up. And it's short enough, it's concise enough, and it's going to make your head spin. And you're going to say, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. All right? And I think your children appreciate it. You got to be subtle. You can't. You got to try to just. I do. Most people are waking to a degree, but it takes time. Nobody. It's easier to lie to somebody than to tell them they've been lied to. People are so afraid to admit to the fact that they've been fooled, and we've seen people we all know people like that. Yeah.
Can you repeat it one more time? I think I heard some people back here
the documentary is called Planet Lockdown. Planet Lockdown, and you want the version with Catherine Austin Fitts. She does a nice introduction to it, but she's critical. The version with Catherine Austin Fitts, I think it's about 45 minutes. It's been around, it's dated. It's a couple years old because it was during COVID, but she talks about exactly what was happening, what the COVID vaccine was designed for. She's the one that talked to me. She worked with Michigan State MBA program and discovered by looking at the receipts that were $22 trillion worth of receipts that are unknown, on top of the $36 trillion. So start there, be subtle. I will tell you, there's The Great Reset by Glenn Beck or Anthony Fauci, Alex Jones. They're both very simple, but they're very informative. They're pretty well done. You can go there. And I would recommend, if they have questions, go to Rumble, www.rumble.com, and put in anything you want, and you're going to get the best. If you go to Google, you're going to get garbage. You pull up 9/11, you're going to get 100 articles saying, preaching the same thing. No dissension. Rumble, I think, is the best source out there right now as far as providing some good information. And then when you see articles and people you like, just send it to them. Something easy to digest. So good luck. I know it's hard.
I just have a comment about the election.
Yes, ma'am.
I think it was stolen. I don't know if we'll ever find out, but I think it was meant to be. I think it was divine intervention in a way.
Yeah.
Because if he would have went into the second term, the country wouldn't have been awakened as it has been awakened.
Yeah.
I believe that this is a battle between good and evil. God is in charge, and right now Donald Trump, he's using Donald Trump. And I study scripture, so
there you go.
Read Judges. We're living through Judges right now.
There you go.
But I think, I was so devastated that he didn't get the second term, but now I see why.
Yeah.
And I think we all should look at it that way. Yeah. Our eyes have been awakened.
Yeah.
No,
I think you're right. And you can call that catastrophic strategic victory. They stole the election, but in the process, they exposed themselves. And
we're going to have...
What we're seeing now is more of that happening. And that's beautiful. Yes, ma'am. Sorry, Debbie.
I was just going to say, we have our last question here.
Okay.
Can you speak to the lawfare that's going on now with the judges and Trump's executive orders?
Yeah. I think it's beautiful because it's proving what we already suspected, that there's an unjust system. Our legal system is completely compromised and corrupt for the reasons we talked about earlier. Who's being put in there. Soros is buying these judges off. The big money is controlling people. If you looked at every single one of the judges, they all have relationships that go back to Soros or some other radical liberal funding organization, okay? So the fact that this judge says you can't send terrorists out of the country to the president, I mean, keep doing that. Keep doing that, because they're exposing themselves. So right now what you have, we call it flailing. Anybody been in a fight? I know you've been in one. But anyway, there you go. In a fight, when somebody's getting their butts beat, they start flailing. They're not thinking straight, they're not using technique, they're not being smart, they're flailing and they're exposing themselves, leaving themselves exposed, and it's a great way to cause harm and damage. So we want them to continue to flail. That is a losing message. A radical judge who has no authority to tell the president about what he can do to protect the nation, the commander-in-chief, let him. So that's all they've got. That's the beautiful thing about it. So let them be exposed, and let's continue to highlight. Because right now, if you look at the Democratic Party, who's completely taken over by these people because of the money, their popularity rating is, under 20% or something dramatic. It's the lowest rating in the history of the world, in the history of the Democratic Party. So whatever they're doing, if your enemy is running off a cliff, don't get in the way. Step aside. Let them go. And that's what they're doing. So that's good. I think we should be happy about that. Well, yeah. These people are bought and paid. And even controlled. Okay? This is what happens. They are controlled. Once you get a person in a compromising position where you can blackmail them, you own them. You don't have to win that seat. You don't have to win that judgeship. You own them. And that is why you see what we're happening. And that is why we have people like Epstein and P. Diddy. And there was a guy years ago who was doing it called Larry King, but not the news guy. Okay? There's a lot of people that do this. Put these people in these compromising positions. They can be controlled and they can be owned.
So we want to thank Larry once again. He enlightened us. What a great presentation. And I don't know if any of us are going to